Good evening, everybody. Welcome to BBL Central, our fifth podcast of the year. Tonight, we've got a bit of a different panel. We were out Roscoe or Timmy. Timmy's still crying because Ben Hunt's going to the Broncos. And Roscoe's off having a bit of Chinese feed tonight and having the night off. So best of luck to both of you boys. But instead, we've got a fine panel here. We've got Dan. How are you going there, Dan?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Just relaxing, waiting for cricket to start. So, I'm having to catch up on my old TV series just to fill the time at the moment. I'm looking forward to having me BBL nightly. How's
your planning going there,
mate? It's about as good as ever. I'm actually guilty. I'm actually planning ahead for NRL, but I'll keep that on the side. But no, I don't have a bit of planning on mainly on players. I'm picking my players that are on certain teams for the doubles. That's what I always do every year. I don't really haven't got my players set in stone. I've got my teams set in stone, so I can know how to plan 3 to 4 weeks in advance. So players are interchangeable, but those teams are pretty much locked in.
How many times have you changed your team so far this year?
Every time Honeyball puts a new post up about an injury, it's always changed. So yeah. Very, very often.
For those people that don't know, Dan has appeared before with quite a few of our different podcasts throughout the year, and you'll often find him very active over there at NRL Tragics or they've got BBL Tragics now going over there. G'day to Glenn Fish, Brod, and Kane. Thank you, fellas. There's always really good cash comps over there, which Brod runs. So to stick your nose over to Tragics if you're interested in any of that. And there's also lots of good BBL banter going down. The other bloke we've got tonight is absolute, of course, legend of Queensland cricket, Sam Heazlett. How you going there, mate?
Good. Yeah, good to be back and talking a bit of cricket this time after a few appearances during the rugby league season.
How did you were flying at one stage in your NRL Supercoach? How'd you end up?
Yeah, I finished pretty strong. I don't want to like lie or anything, but I think I was definitely top 2,000. I don't know exactly where I finished up. I think I was top 2,000 somewhere. But yeah, I was happy. That was good for me. I always put a bit of time into it, but good to come home strong and get up in that sort of position. Unfortunately, can't do a cricket Supercoach side. I'd love to, but still not allowed to, having been recently contracted and being able to win money. They sort of count it as gambling on cricket sort of thing. So I can talk about it, but can't have my own team, unfortunately.
No, that's all right. Well, we'd much rather you get a contract and be playing. That would be way better.
Yeah, hopefully I'll pick up a late contract somewhere and as a replacement player in one of the sides, whether it's for an injured player or for someone in an Australian squad. We'll see what happens.
Well, the way injuries have been coming this year, that you never know. That call-up could be just around the corner. And you have been hitting the ball pretty well lately from what I've heard in grade cricket, etc. You've been going pretty good.
Definitely started the season well. I was really happy with my white ball form for Redlands in first grade. Haven't played much the last couple of weeks. It's been a lot of rain up here in Queensland, especially on Saturdays and Sundays, strangely enough. So been training hard during the week, spending a lot of time in the sun, hitting cricket balls and coaching as well, which I do a lot of. But unfortunately, we get to the weekend and it seems to rain every time. So yeah, I had a week in Hong Kong playing in the Hong Kong Sixers competition, which was a lot of fun. Yep. But it was strange six-a-side cricket competition over there. But yeah, hopefully this weekend we can get in for some grade cricket.
I'll tell you what, I've never heard of anybody talk about Sixers for a long time. I played in the Sixers comp back in early 1990s, and it was a charity event. God, it was fun. It's crazy because everyone's got to have a bowl, and it's and the way the charity event's structured, you can have so many A-grade players. You got to have a junior, you got to have a female player, and so it's a really mixed bag of each team of what gets out there. So, but a hell of a lot of fun for us. Yours is obviously a lot more serious. So.
Yeah, no, it's over very quickly. So it's good fun game. You can't have too bad of a game or too good of a game, really. So stay pretty level and look forward to the next game.
Yeah, but you can still only afford to lose 1 wicket and over. If you lose more than that, then you're buggered, aren't you? You've still got to. But yeah, we'll get to tonight. We're going to talk about. We've got 3 things on the menu. We're going to have a quick look at the Sydney Thunder. We're then going to have a great discussion about the flex position. There's a fair bit of confusion, a little bit of confusion out there about it. We'll clear up some of those little questions about the flex and give you a bit of an idea on how it's going to run and our thoughts on it. I've got some definite thoughts on it, but and then we'll wrap it up. And Sam's going to give us his. He's going to have a bit of a chat from his physio point of view about some of the injuries that have been floating about the cricket world domestically, which are going to have a pretty big impact on whether we're picking players, not picking players. And there's a couple of big ones there, of course, that are really affected. All right, so we might just get it straight into it. There's the top, our best 11 that we think, and under all people's discussion, we've discussed this with a lot of different pundits, and David Warner to open, Constance number 2, Bancroft, Billings, Ollie Davies, Gilks at number 6. That could be, I don't know, but he did start the year absolutely on fire. Sams, Green, Agar, who comes across from the Strikers, Sanger, and Lockie Ferguson at about 152,000 is there. What do you reckon of that team, Dan?
Well, I am a Thunder supporter, so it's been a rough few years for me. But I do love Thunder. Any Western Sydney team is all my team, as you can clearly see Western Sydney right here. But yeah, I think there were some good signings this year. The teams are almost massively different than what it was last year. And finishing last, it really needed some changes. I love Billings. I think Billings is a great number 4 to have in the team. Very, very. He's that kind of guy, kind of like what Jimmy Pearson is. He's that when they start losing a few wickets, he's very kind of safe. So I love Billings there. You're still a bit confused by Gilks. I think he's earned that spot probably from his form moving into BBL. But his BBL, I find he was a pretty handy opener. Get that quick 20. But at 6, I'm not sure. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Now, one for you, Sam. Is there any youngsters there we should be keeping an eye on? I mean, that's really, you're not going to get many Thunder players if you're playing Supercoach because they're just not that relevant early on. But Constance and Solzman, is it? Are 2 youngsters that are lurking about. Do you know much about them?
Yeah, well, it's a very different side without Hales at the top. We're used to seeing Hales at the top for the Thunder over the years. I think obviously David Warner being there probably the whole season is a massive pickup. He's experienced and, he's not going to score runs every game, but I think you've seen in the IPL over the years, he's been pretty consistent there and should get them off to a decent start, especially if they've got someone like Constance, at least that experience either side with Warner and Bancroft. Bancroft's shown he actually does quite well in T20 cricket as well. Not that he's had the best start in the Shield season, but scored 100 not long ago. So a bit of experience either side. And Constance, yeah, I haven't seen much in white ball cricket from him. I've seen a lot of red ball cricket. And so, having not seen the white ball stuff, you see him as more of a red ball player, but he scored quite quickly against India in the Prime Minister's 11 game and played some aggressive shots, some risky shots, but looked quite comfortable doing so. So I'm sure they'll probably give him a crack. Jilks is plenty of raps on him and it's a bit hot and cold, but plenty of potential. Solzman is a tough one. He's had raps on him for a long time, or the last few years at least, for a young player, and he's played a couple of games for New South Wales, more as a bowler, I believe, but a pretty decent power hitter as well. Been unlucky with injuries, and then also whenever he's been injured and someone else has got an opportunity, they seem to have done fairly well for themselves. So hasn't played a whole lot for New South Wales recently. Could get a go with the Thunder. I'm not sure where he's at, if he's been playing grey cricket or anything. The only spot I see him coming in for is potentially for Wes Agar. I'm really not sure whether they paid a lot for Wes Agar to get him to come across, or whether the strikers actually weren't keen on him and So the Thunder might have got him a bit cheaper and then don't feel as obliged to play him in their starting 11. I'm not sure, but that'll be one to watch.
Would it be safe to say that bottom 5 look like they're going to basically bowl all the overs? Because when you look at it, there's not a lot there, but Ollie Davies does roll his arm over, doesn't he?
Yeah, he bowls some off spin, Ollie. It's not too bad, but I wouldn't want to be relying on it. So, I mean, it's like, and Sam's is definitely a very handy batter and good, can come off nicely, but can go on a run of low scores as well. So him at 7, they've always had a long tail, the Thunder, I feel. He's always come in at 6 or 7, and you felt like as soon as they get down to that period, they're just going to collapse. So, I definitely feel more comfortable with him at 8, but I'm sure he can do a job at 7. I think he's been scoring some runs in grade cricket recently. Chris Green can bat, but I'm not sure he's a power hitter or anything like that. So those bottom 4, I don't think are going to contribute too much with the bat.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I don't think there's a lot really here to talk about with this team, Supercoach-wise. Lockie Ferguson, 152,000. He's just going to be way too expensive to consider at the moment. Sam's is up there. We don't know. I mean, Agar, looking at that, you'd think Agar would take the death overs, wouldn't you? What do you think, boys? Dan, what do you reckon?
I think Ferguson will potentially do some death overs. Some of his variations are pretty good. I've watched a few. I think he was watching the PNG highlights recently. He was the first few overs he was bowling. The ball was swinging in real nice, and then the ball started to lose its swing. So he started trying to change up its lower balls, and they were just skidding on and going real slow. And it was just having the batters north. I reckon Lockie Ferguson would be a great death bowler. Agar would be, and I reckon Sam's and Ferguson could be the 2 death bowlers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably go Ferguson and Sam's and Green as with 3 of the first 4 overs. And then also, Sam's and Ferguson to finish, I would say. Yeah, potentially Agar, but probably I'd be more confident with Sam's and Ferguson. So a lot of spin through the middle, a lot of Stanger, Green and Agar through the middle.
I have seen a lot of people going Gilks. He's probably the most popular player, believe it or not, in Supercoach for the Thunder. The reason for this is people are looking for a cheap option in the wicket keeper, and he sort of fills that role. I don't know. I just can't do it. But either of you two thinking about? Oh no, you're not you, Sam. But Dan, you thinking about Gilksy for that second wicket keeping position? Cheapy?
Nah, I think I got him this cheap last year when he first started, but he was open to batting. So that to me, he's not at that big spot. It's going to be very much like a Nielsen, where I just don't think it's going to be. You'll probably get a lot of zeros out of it. I reckon we'll get to it later, but I reckon you're almost better off having almost enough over him that's lower in price, and utilize that extra flex spot for an extra player there. Because there's not going to be not many buys this year. There's only the 3 teams that have buys this year, I'm pretty sure. So it's going to be harder to loop. So we're going to need to have potentially extra enough. And if you can't find it, if you want to don't have 2 guns in the keeper spot, you may as well get a cheapie.
Yeah. No, that sounds pretty fair and reasonable there. All right, so now that gets us onto our next subject, which will be the flex position. Now, Dan, do you want to give us a rundown of what you think, or what the best way that you think of explaining the flex position to those people who are a bit confused about its introduction?
Yeah, well, it's like we planned that segue almost, didn't we? So I'm even learning stuff about this myself even recently as well. So the flex, obviously, it's a 12th position that you can take as a scoring position. However, your lowest out of those 12 players will drop out. And that player could be a batter, could be a bowler, could be a keeper. So essentially, the highest scoring 11 out of your 11 players plus your flex will be contributing to your total score. that's pretty much that in a nutshell. But there will be some, I guess, caveats when it comes to certain things. I've just found out that if your captain is your lowest scorer, I say you get unlucky and you put Maxi down as your captain and he gets a 1. He's your lowest scorer. Your flex player will come in for Maxi if he gets more than 1, obviously, but he won't become your captain. Those points will then go to your vice captain. So it's another potential weird way to loop if you really get creative and can plan it right. And I say plan it right, plan your captain to be crap. But yeah, a bit tricky that one. So and what was the last thing? Oh, the last thing. This is probably another one that people might get confused by. If your starting 11 has a DNP or it did not play, that does not include in your 11. Your 11 is actually to play your loop team. So let's say you have enough keeper. You got Joe Clark who goes nuts. So you decide to have your starting keeper as a DNP enough. That Clark will contribute to your 11, not that DNP. So your flex will still contribute as part of that total 12 to the score. Hoping that clears things up a little bit, but that seems when I was talking then I was even confusing myself a little bit. So, anything else you can think of, Brad?
No, not really. I think you've covered it all. I mean, the 3 major points are there. You got 11 players on the field. Your 12th player is a flex, and he can come in for your lowest scoring player on the field. You still want your best 11 on the field, folks.
Yeah,
Don't
100%.
get caught in the trap of thinking, I'll put him there because, if Stoinis, say, for instance, he's not part of your best 11, don't have him on the field. You don't put him there in case he scores big. I mean, that's just gonna lead you down an ugly, slippery slope. Have your best 11.
He's ideal to have as your emergency player to potentially loop in. He's the perfect player to have there.
He's high ceiling,
yeah, that's right. And it's unlikely, but he might even surprise us all and grab the ball in his hand and go for a bowl. But I think that's us screaming again. Back in the old days when he was just killing it everywhere.
Well, he has been bowling a lot recently. He bowled a lot of overs for Australia, so I wouldn't discount him.
He gets our hopes up every single year. He was bowling for Australia last year before the BBL too. I remember that day when he got the one. I think it was 147 he got, and the points he scored in Supercoach were ridiculous. And he went out and bowled as well. I was like, "What the hell? This is the gift that keeps on giving you, sexy man."
Yeah. Who he is, I'll tell you who he is, and Sam will laugh at this one. He is the Ben Trebojevic of BBL Supercoach. Ben Trebojevic comes out in the first game of the year, he scores like 70 points, and we all go, "Oh, Jesus, we should have had him. Oh, what a perfect duel." Everybody gets him in, and then what's he do for the rest of the year? The same as what he's done for the last 2 years previous. Nothing.
Very harsh on Marcus Stoinis. And I know he has had some cold runs, but he's done well quite consistently in the Big Bash. I think maybe not as much for Australia, but in the Big Bash, he's had some good seasons. So that's a bit harsh on him, I reckon.
Oh no! I think he's a quality player. I think he's too good to leave out. Personally, myself, I will be running with him. I don't mind saying that. He's too good. I just can't see how you at 60,000. I don't see how or why anybody could consider leaving him out of your plans. And even if you have him on your bench and you could loop him in if he does go off, you've got multiple options for him. So, I'm with you there on that, Sam. I'm not in the hatred class, but it's just funny. The Ben Trebojevic analogy is funny. Ross Man says Stoinis loves
two trappers.
Sorry, all one word there. Thank you, Ross. Ross is obviously listening in tonight. We always, as I said, we'll have him back in a few more weeks, and there'll be lots more content coming from Ross. I gather from that Ross is not going with getting on the Marcus train. Do watch that captain's loop though. Or the captain, if your captain only scores 1 point, oh man, that's going to be a scary when imagine it when there's no buys that round. When there's no double game weeks, which is a couple of them. and every team has to play once, and there's no team on a bye, whoever your captain is, if they don't go very well, if they're in your bottom, oh man, there's going to be some people looking for somewhere to hide, aren't they?
On the same token that we were talking about before with the flex position. So one of the strategies that I will use the flex position for is it's an extra player that we never had last year. I don't like to nuff a player at all. So I will be nuffing a player this year just because of the lack of buy round, so I can have a chance to captain and loop captain at least every game this year, have the chance to do so. If you don't have the chance to loop every single game, you're not giving yourself the best chance to get the best score. So that's just a little strategy that I'll be using.
There's a couple of all-rounders out there that are actually perfect for that this year. So and they're pretty popular at the moment. There's one from Western Australia named, it's just gone out of my head. But he possibly now might be getting a start. It all depends upon
the Spores.
Spores. That's him.
Yeah, I think he's going to be starting at the moment. They're dropping like flies over there, the poor buggers.
But yeah, he's going to be very popular, a first round pick for a lot of teams. All right, so we're moving along nice and quick. Anybody want to add anything to that flex position, Sam?
No, couldn't tell you much about
it. That's well, I reckon it's going to come into the NRL as well. The reason for this is, and the big reason it's been created here in BBL, is a lot of the teams, particularly with the content like us and other people that's out there, a lot of the teams got very generic, and it became very hard last year to differentiate between the top teams and, the teams in the top 2,000. It was very, very clustered up and not a lot of variation, The risk-taking was taken out of it. This at least introduces risk-taking back into it and creates a little bit of, creates another element to it, which hopefully might see it open up a little bit. NRL, I'm not sure how the AFL was.
To be honest,
What's that?
So to be honest, I was taking risks all last year, mate, and it didn't work for me. So, but still, it's always just because you haven't got the flex position doesn't mean you can't take risks. It just means you don't rank very high at the end of the season.
Well, as I said, that flex position adds that extra element into it, and there is talk that they're going to do it for NRL. I'm not sure how about the AFL. I haven't played AFL Supercoach, but I have heard that NRL is seriously looking at bringing it in because exactly the same thing happened this year. It got very, the movement towards the top end in that top 2,000. Believe it or not, it didn't really move much because people. And I was ranked around about there and around about 1,000 and something or 2,000, around simply similar to you, Sam. And there wasn't a lot of, although I'd have a great score or I'd have a poor score, we weren't moving much. I don't know if you noticed that towards the end. You think, oh shit, I'm going to go see all these green arrows, and there's not really much movement because everybody else has got exactly the, we're all doing exactly the same sorts of trades, and we've got our pattern. So, the flex certainly will change that, particularly in NRL, because, where do you go? Do you get a second rower? Do you get a halfback? With what money you've got, it could be really add another element to it. All right, we might...
you all know it's a third fullback.
What's that? You're just going to get another fullback, are you?
Yeah, we're all going to get third fullback. That's what we're going to get.
But can you afford it? That's going to be the big thing. So it's what you can afford.
You get someone like Longy. Okay, let's talk about BBL. Let's not talk about that. I'm being excited. I've been doing a lot of NRL research recently, so I'm getting my head stuck in that. So,
all right. Well, we're going to have a little bit of a chat about some major injury concerns there. Not hearing a huge amount about Glenn Maxwell. He's one that's on the top of everyone's lips. I'm seeing him in a lot of teams that have been presented out there and people asking advice on teams. A lot of them are still running with Glenn Maxwell. Has a grade 2 hamstring. What's this exactly mean there?
The grade, it's good to know what grade injury it is. In cricket, we often don't know. There's not a lot of reporting around what grade of injury it is, but grade 2 just means it's a partial strain, really. It's not minor. Grade 1 is just a couple of fibers, just a few fibers have strained, and grade 3 is a complete tear of the muscle fibers. Grade 2 is sort of a partial tear. So there is still a big range of what grade 2 could really mean. Sort of usually for grade 2, you're looking at 4 to 8 weeks for players, especially with someone like Glenn Maxwell, who's sprinting in the field, a lot of repeat sprints, puts a lot of load through that hamstring. He injured it on the 18th of November, which is about 4 weeks before the first Big Bash game. So it would have to be probably on the more minor side of that grade 2 strain. But yeah, I think if he's playing, like if he's willing to sprint in the field, I don't see any reason why he can't bowl, because I feel like sprinting is going to put more load through it than bowling his spin. It is on his left leg, which is slightly worse for his bowling because he loads up on that front leg when he bowls. But yeah, and also to be noted, he seemed to be grabbing sort of down near his knee or distally, as we sort of call it, and it was usually a slightly shorter recovery period because it mostly affects the knee joint. It's not going to affect the movement at the hip as much in the hip extension. So it could bode well for him being the fibers down near the knee joint. So yeah, he might be okay. It's different if he's a fast bowler where so much more load will go through that hamstring when the front leg hits the crease, with someone like Michael Nessa, who we'll talk about. But as a spinner, it shouldn't be as bad for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few fast bowlers out there that are also have got issues at the moment. And one that should be very popular that I don't think is at the moment is this fella. Bring him up. One, Will Sutherland.
Yeah, well, Will, I know he's had some back issues over the years and had some time off. He didn't go over to the UK to play his county stint. I think that was because of a back issue, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so then he came back to Australia, and we believe it's a side strain that he's out with at the moment because he's been batting in second 11 cricket and red ball cricket, but just not bowling, and that's why he's not in the Victorian side at the moment yet. And not uncommon, I guess, if you've had a longer period off not bowling because of his back issues. When he comes back, with that explosive force coming back in, it could do that side strain and strain the muscle through his oblique region, abdominal region. I'm not sure which side it is. It's often his sort of front, often a bowler's front arm where they stretch back and then pull down explosively, but can also be the side of the bowling arm, and even especially for Will being a right arm bowler, being a very front on bowler, he bowls in swing to the right hander and is quite front on, so it could easily be his right arm that he's done. It doesn't really matter from his point of view, but it's hard with a side strain. You can often keep bowling if it's a grade 1, but it can easily then turn into a grade 2. So it's a big risk to keep bowling with that grade 1, and then if it does turn into a grade 2, you're probably going about 6 weeks usually out before you're coming back in. But especially for fast bowling, it could be longer. You want to be careful with it because it's an injury that can really recur over and over again if you don't give it the proper recovery time and come back slowly with that explosive movement for bowling. And especially for Will, such an explosive batter too. He could do it even batting with how much body he swings into, body force he swings into his bat swing. And with that injury, it can cause some confidence issues because if you're a bit unsure of it, if you're not willing to really bowl as fast as you can or swing as hard as you can, then you're not going to get the outcomes you want on the field. So you've got to be pretty confident with it.
Here's an interesting trivia question, I guess. Who's going to end up with more Australian caps, him or his sister?
At this stage, it looks like Annabelle might have him covered.
That'll be an interesting discussion at Christmas, wouldn't it, Dan?
Yeah, mate. To be honest, my sister was a pretty handy cricket player too. So she was she was like 2 years younger than me, and we were playing representative at school and stuff. And she was always going to the next level. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna give up. She's too good. I know how he feels.
All right. Now you mentioned Michael Nessa earlier. Do we know any information about what's going on there?
he's got a big history of hamstring injuries, especially with his left hamstring, with his front leg, which takes the most load. And this one, I mean, I'm assuming it is a tear to some degree. I don't have much detail around it. I'm sure it would be a tear now, but he does have a history of tendinopathy, where it's more of a tendon aggravation sort of issue, where you can bowl through tendinopathy. It's initially, especially, it's more of a pain management sort of thing, where the tendon's just angry from overuse, overload from over long periods of time, and often recurs, and it's hard to get rid of. It sort of will be there for the whole season once it's there. And he's dealt with that a lot and struggled through it a lot. And there was reports that he was struggling with hamstring pain in the lead up to this game with Australia A, where he did it. So I'm assuming it was the tendinopathy that he was having issues with initially, and sometimes that tendinopathy potentially, arguably, can make him slightly more likely to then have a minor strain or whatever it might be after that if you keep pushing forward. So probably what he's done now, and especially, he had a bit of a break over the winter with a calf injury, and then if he returns to those high loads faster than normal, the hamstring tendon can be irritated, and especially that Aussie A game where he did the injury, they reported a lot of the bowlers have been struggling at the MCG this year with cramps and muscle soreness, because it's been apparently quite a heavy outfield. They've had a lot of recent top dressing done on the field to look after the outfield, and sort of made the bowlers feel like they've got quite heavy legs running around the outfield. So, and he is getting older. Michael Nesser, he's played a lot of cricket now. The last couple of summers, he has been rested a lot more from Queensland one-day sides and the like, to try and manage his load and have him right for Big Bash. So it's a shame that he's going to miss a bit of that by the looks of it.
Previously they've whacked him. They've brought him back, and they've really restricted him, or Australian cricket or Queensland cricket, I should say, manages his workload. They brought him back batting in lower grades, and then I think last year he came back into the BBL and wasn't allowed to bowl. He could only bat there for a while, and then they said, you can bowl 2 overs maximum. You think that's probably likely again, the sort of management plan?
Oh, look, I think if he plays Big Bash, they won't say bowl 2 overs. It'll either be nothing or 4, I would say. He's definitely a good batter, great fielder, as we've seen in the past, great all-round player, but I don't see him being picked as a batter alone. At that top level, I don't think he's good enough to be picked as a batter. But he'll definitely come back and play grade cricket as a batter for a little bit first, and then build those bowling loads. He's a sort of bowler that doesn't need to bowl that fast. He's got such great skills that he could run in it and bowl at 70% and bowl 125 Ks an hour and be effective, or 120. But he's not that sort of guy. He's all effort. He runs in, he's explosive, he bowls as fast as he can. It's not 145, but he still puts in 100% every time. He's not the sort of guy that's going to go half-hearted at it.
Brisbane have a double in round 3, I think it is. So that's around about 3 odd weeks away, 3.5 weeks away till that kicks in. So hopefully, watch out, keep a watch, people, but do not start him. Another one which none of us really know too much about, but Jordan Buckingham apparently is on a track for a start in round 1, coming back from his side strain injury, I think it was as well. Dan, you got him in there as a cheapie, would you, at round 1 if he's playing? Bottom dollar.
Sorry. I love the idea of having a cheapie in for the strikers, especially having the double game next week as well. So it gives them an extra chance to build some cash up. Even if he has a bad game in say the first game in round 2, you can kind of make up for it in the second game, and you can still have less chance of losing cash. So 100%. If I want to free up cash, I've got Spores at the moment in there as a filler, but I think if he gets a start, I like that. I think Spores might potentially bat a bit low and not have a job security that Buckingham may have. So.
Yeah, no, 100% he won't, but he'll be popular if he does start. Now, Sam, I don't know a great deal of information, but I'm seeing a lot of people with some of the boys from the West in their team. not necessarily Agar so much, but we know he's injured and he's being managed as well, a la very similar to Nisa. But Connolly and Hardy, I'm seeing a lot of people with Hardy in that team. Have you heard anything about these three or the boys out west?
Yeah, Cooper Connolly, he fractured his fourth metacarpal, which is sort of the long bone in the hand, which is connected to the ring finger on his right hand. I looked at the reports. He had early swelling, which is never a great sign, but without deformity, without actual seeing the bone sticking out of the skin or pointing out too much, pushing through, you don't know whether it's actually broken or not. But I think it has been confirmed with scans now. It's hard to know. It's usually about 3 to 4 weeks if you go with non-surgical management. If they don't need to do surgery, about 3 to 4 weeks from when he's done it. But sports like cricket, where you're using your hands so often, and they're in the firing line out in the field, they might take a slightly more conservative approach. And if they do go with surgery, it's often double, often at least 6 weeks if they do have surgery. They said he would meet with a surgeon, but this is often done, even if they're not likely to get surgery, they often meet with a surgeon just to talk about the options and get some advice around recovery and splints and those sort of things. So that's what I've got on Cooper Connolly. We've got Ashton Turner too, who did a side strain, I think playing a sweep shot in club cricket, potentially.
That's right, it was Turner, not Hardy. My apologies, people.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about Hardy, so I was wondering who you
put Hardy back in the team. No, it's Turner.
But yeah, like he might have been bowling in the lead up. I know he does bowl a bit. So potentially in club cricket, he'd been bowling a bit and maybe then batted afterwards and done that side strain sweeping. I mean, sweep shot, unless it was a genuine slog sweep, it's not that explosive of a shot. So it's strange that he's sort of done it. And it's funny with Ashton Turner, I also see him as quite a strong wristy sort of player. He doesn't actually put his whole body into a lot of movements a lot of the times, even though he doesn't look like the biggest, bulkiest guy, and he has those sort of long levers. He's sort of like in the Glenn Maxwell mold for me. He's a sort of batter where he doesn't swing his whole body and put his whole body into everything. He's quite super strong with his wrist, stronger than you'd think, and just use his hands to manipulate the ball to the areas in the field that he wants. And when I say that, I mean manipulate it over the rope in Big Bash cricket. But so I wouldn't be surprised if he's back sooner rather than later, unless he's got extremely unlucky and it's a high grade tear. But yeah, we've got Ashton Agar is the last one. AC joint injury where that collarbone connects onto the shoulder joint. One that I've done too, which is super annoying. It's often just a pain management sort of issue with AC joints. You hear about it in rugby league all the time where just got to push through the pain, depending on the grade, of course, and they can get those pain-killing injections or whatever, but just affects sort of cross-body movements a lot. So it's his left arm, I believe, because he was batting with just his top hand in that Shield game where he did it. So just any pull shots, sweep shots where he's coming across his body is going to be super irritating for it and going to make things tough. And throwing as well, especially throwing with his left arm, it might not affect his bowling as much. It's funny, those shoulder injuries often don't affect bowling as much if you're keeping your arm straight, but there's no guarantee on that. And it does depend on the degree. Like usually a grade 3, you get surgery done if you're in a contact sport. And they used to do grade 3s and throwing sport surgery on grade 3s and throwing sports as well. But the last few years, they haven't done it as much because research coming out seems to suggest there's no real different outcomes for players, whether you get surgery or not. If it's a grade 3, I had a grade 3 on my AC joint and didn't get surgery, and it's been fine. But it does potentially lead to a slightly higher risk of ongoing pain and potentially future arthritis in the joint due to that collarbone sort of moving around quite a bit, not being stabilized down. But not sure exactly what they've done rehab-wise with Ash, but he's a pretty integral part of their team, so they'll be wanting to get him back pretty soon.
Yeah. By the way, I've just heard a little whisper come through saying that Hardy possibly is injured as well, but we'll get to that one later because I've got no info on it. I've got no idea.
Yeah, I've got a bit of info on that one.
Oh, do you?
Looks like so it looks like it's a quad injury. He hasn't been playing much cricket. They've wrapped him in a bit of cotton wool recently. So this is from Honeyball. So she's just nursing a quad complaint at the moment. So quads can be quite niggly. It could be just precautionary, but yeah, quad not ideal.
Yeah, because I think is that what he's been playing through in white ball cricket anyway, but just they've left him out of the red ball sides and haven't bowled him in red ball cricket a bit, or is that more recent that he's actually done the quad? Because I know he hasn't played a whole lot of red ball cricket.
The saying he hasn't played since November 18. So since then they decided to wrap him up in cotton wool from November 18 onwards. That's from Ben. Yeah.
There you go.
Another big one was, which I've seen a lot of people's teams. I won't dwell on it too much longer. Is Curtis Patterson. Man, the bloke's unlucky because he was in some really hot form, and should be picked in a lot of people's teams, which a lot of people have. But I'll be trading him out because they're predicting a mid-January return for him.
What did he do?
Yeah, you got me. I just remember that I did see him a lot in a lot of teams.
Okay, yeah, because I think he was named to play the next Shield game for New South Wales, I think, or maybe it was the last one I was thinking about. But yeah, he's got a long history of soft tissue injuries and quads. He's done his quads many times, so that's a real shame for him.
In the what it's and particularly over in county cricket, he was absolutely killing it over there. So anyway, poor bloke, he's going to miss out on the latest. I'm just having a quick read here. No, I'm not getting any quick answers there. So, at any rate, we'll keep moving along. I'll tell you what. Nick Maddison's another one. Someone's just whispered at me, but no, Curtis Patterson is another one. But Nick Maddison as well. He is also gone. So people don't pick him, but I haven't seen many people pick him in his team. Tell you what, that was fascinating, Sam. I could listen to some of that all night. That was fantastic. I'll tell you what, that was a cracking stuff there. You've done some really good research, and we really appreciate it. It was fantastic.
That's all right. I may as well put my university degree to some sort of use. I haven't actually started physio yet, but I've been studying it for 10 years, so I should put it to some use. And I've been injured a lot myself, so I can talk from experience for some of these things too.
No, I'll tell you what, man, that was fantastic. That was some of the best stuff we've had. That was very, very good. Now, where can you've been doing a lot of coaching and that? Where do people find you if they want to have if they've got an elite child or something that wants a bit of extra coaching or etc.? You got any vacancies or they find you online anyway?
Yeah. Oh, thanks for the opportunity. It's called Perform Cricket. My cricket business is Perform Cricket, so you can look at performcricket.com.au or on the social media sites. You'll find that. And yeah, I do in-person coaching here in Brisbane, but definitely do plenty of online coaching sessions with players from around Australia and around the world. So happy to meet some new people and help them out in their cricketing journeys.
Good stuff. Remember that, Perform Cricket, folks. If you've got an elite up and comer, then maybe get in touch with Sam and see what can be done. All right, we've got another question that's just come through. Ross has come in with another question. Evening, lads. Who do we think will be this season's MVP? Dan.
Oh, it's usually an all-rounder. I don't know. I'm you know what? I'm gonna go against what I just said about an all-rounder. I reckon it's Warner's year. He's gonna have a full season under his belt and go Warner. He's gonna have a big few 50s up front and then get a ton or two.
What do you reckon, Sam? You got anybody that you think is gonna?
I was considering Warner too, but safe option. I mean, I'm not going to throw any strange ones out there, I don't think, but maybe I think Marcus Stoinis is an exceptional player, and every time I play against Marcus Stoinis, you think, gee, this guy could just take us down, and you feel like you're a chance, maybe bowling leg spin or something to him early, but He's got on top of us plenty of times in the past, and so if he's batting high and getting time in the middle and also bowling overs, I think he could take it out.
Oh, we all there? You're there? I don't know what happened there. No, just no storms around here tonight. But anyway, we cut out there for a minute, and now we're back. Thank you for that question there, Ross. Mine is Tom Curran.
Good call.
But you did say an all-rounder, so yeah, it's sort of. But I'm certainly expecting the Melbourne Stars, because it sounds like all three of us are going to Melbourne Star. So if you're a gambling man, maybe the Melbourne Stars are going to have a bit better year this year, because how weird's that? We've all picked the Melbourne Star to be an MVP.
Warner's the Thunder, mate. So
Thunder, that's right. Warner's a Thunder. The other two.
Yeah, I'm going to be loyal to my boys.
All right. Well, that's about it for tonight, folks. I thank for all those that have sent a question in, and any of those that tune in. Do not forget that we do have a group, unlimited group code, 455892. There's a jersey on offer. There's also a trophy on offer, a BBL jersey of your choice. Get in there, join up, tell your mates to join up, join the BBL Central page if you haven't, which I think you have, because you're probably seeing this through that format, or you could be one of our YouTube subscribers or a Spotify. You can find us on all those social mediums. Get into it. That code again was 455892. Thanks very much, Dan, for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure as always, mate. I love the input. It's fantastic. And Sam, as I said, that end part there with the injuries, that was fantastic, mate. Great stuff to have you.
Thanks for having me. Love it.
All right, that's it, folks. And we'll see you next week, and probably Tuesday when we're going to do a few team reveals. See you then.